Welcome, everyone, inside the Sports Interaction Studio. I'm your host, Prince Hudda, and I have a very special guest with us here today. We're talking Euros, we're talking Copas, we're talking a lot of soccer, and no better person to have here than James Sharman, formerly Sportsnet, The Score, Footy Prime. He's done it all, and he's with us here today inside the Sports Interaction Studio. James, how's it going?
It's going good. Yeah, I'm getting pumped.
I like it.
It's going to be some tournament coming up. Tournaments, should I say. What a summer.
Oh, yeah. I think this will be good. As a newer soccer fan, you know, I kind of really fell in love with the sport, the Champions League, and it just so happens this summer we got these major tournaments. If you're a hockey bettor or a basketball bettor or you're waiting for the NFL, this is kind of the little palate cleanser for the summer here, if you will. So very excited to talk through these tournaments here today.
Yeah, me too. You know, so it's going to be an intriguing tournament. Euro, as is Copa, of course, but Euro, which gets most of the numbers and most of the money from the worldwide gambling world, goes to Euro. And it's one of those tournaments this year where there isn't really a clear-cut favorite. It really is wide open. A couple of teams we'll get to are the favorites, and we'll explain why. But there's 5 or 6 teams that could win this thing. I don't really see a dark horse per se, but it's going to be entertaining football, attacking football. It's going to be brilliant.
That's what I'm all about. I like that too. I think for me, like, as a newer fan, I love the goals. I love seeing the scoring, the star players, and I think Champions League was a good little preview of that for me. So very excited to see. And we got some Canadian representation here with the Copas. So Canada, not the best performance on the World Cup stage, but maybe the Copas is what they need to kind of turn it around. So excited to talk about that as well.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I'm a Canadian fan, of course, as well. And there's expectations for this Canadian team, but it's a challenging group and a brand new coach and a bit of a transition in certain parts of the pitch for Canada right now. So I would temper those expectations, but that's not to say they can't move on from the group phase, but it's going to be a challenge.
Well, let's hope they do move forward. I think it'd be good for the country. You know, Toronto-based, Blue Jays not doing so hot, Raptors not so hot, Leafs. We talk about that a lot on here. It'd be nice to see Canadian teams show up like we've seen the Edmonton Oilers do in the NHL, and maybe on a greater stage.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, Edmonton, by the time a lot of people see these, you know, that they could be champions. They might not be champions. But, yeah, Canadian sports fans might need something. Maybe get some new sports fans, new soccer fans through Copa this year. Maybe that could be an aim of the team.
For sure. And you got the World Cup coming up in a few years, so you really want to give Canadians a reason to get excited and invested in soccer. And I think this tournament will definitely do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So let's start with the Euros here. Very interesting this year. To your point, not a lot of teams right now expected to have like a lopsided favorite. So right now, at the time of recording, England is the favorite for the tournament winner on Sports Interaction, plus 300. France is the second favorite, plus 350. Germany, plus 500. Spain, plus 750. Do any of these numbers surprise you? Do you see England as the favorite? Do you think that's a good bet? Like, what
is it a good bet, man? Here we go. I'm preparing myself for the heartbreak, but I have to say, with England, listen, to begin with, a ton of money gets piled in from England, right? Which is why they often enter tournaments, if not as the favorite, but one of the favorites, even when they're not deserving. This year they are deserving of being, if not the favorite, the second favorite for sure behind France. They're an excellent team. They're somewhat in transition in certain areas of the pitch, but overall they're young. They're all on form. With the exception of defense, they're healthy as well right now. They're an excellent team who have gone deep in tournaments in recent years, right? Mm-hmm. They got to Euro, the final last time out, lost to Italy on penalties. At home, a match they should have won. They're up 1-0. Don't get me angry. I'm still pissed about that one. They got to a World Cup semi recently, a quarterfinal last time out as well.
That's right.
They've got the best player in German football in Harry Kane, top goal scorer. They had the player of the year in England in Phil Foden as well. And Jude Bellingham, Spain's best this year for Real Madrid. So it's all pointing towards crushing disappointment for England fans once again this year. But honestly, I mean, all joking aside, I've been following this team my entire life. And I really believe that this is the best team I've ever seen from an England side. And that was a pretty great team well before you were born in 86 and 1990. But this team's dynamic. Yeah, there's holes at the back. There's some injury concerns. But I understand why they're favourites. And then you have France. And listen, you know, even if you're a peripheral sports fan, you know about France. World champions only a few years ago now. A rough time out last time, of course, but they got to the final. They almost pulled it off against Argentina.
Right.
But there's no team, there's no squad deeper than France at this year's tournament than this team. They're wonderful, and they have, for my money, the best player in world football in Kylian Mbappe.
Right.
So that's why France, if not other favourites, they're right up there with England as a 2.
That's fair. And we look at the group stage. So England's part of Group C, Denmark, Serbia, and Slovenia. So not as tough of a task to get through the group as previous years. So are you rocking with either of those teams, England, France? I know you mentioned at the top of this show there's 5 or 6 teams you like. Who are the teams that maybe we're not seeing at the top of the odds, we're not hearing a lot about, that you think could really make some noise and surprise some people in this tournament?
Well, one thing to note about these two teams, though, is that if they both win their group, which they should, they're going to meet in the semi-finals potentially, not in the final. So if we're going for a top goal scorer from either of those teams, factor in the fact that they might not be in the final. Right, one of them won't be in the final for sure. Okay,
yeah.
But as far as the teams who are going to compete, Germany, third favourites, I believe, at the moment. That's because they're hosts.
Yeah,
they're a really intriguing team. They haven't played great football since winning the World Cup in 2014. In fact, I think in the last 5 big tournaments they've crashed out early. They haven't had to qualify for this tournament. Haven't played competitive games, so we don't know how good they are. Now they have played quite well recently under the new manager Nagelsmann. Hansi Flick was fired early in last year, I think it was, whenever it was, last number of games he was fired. He was trying to implement a different style of football. Didn't work. So they've gone back to the old traditional way of the way Germany plays now under Nagelsmann. It seems to be working better now, I think. Toni Kroos is a guy who, of course, at the European Cup final, won it for Real Madrid, his last club game before retiring, so he says. He's still wonderful footballer. You got that experience in there, but then you got the kids as well. The Musialas out wide, really great players. I think Germany's a good team, but I don't see them as third favourites. They're only getting that because of where it's being played, and that's because of Germany. Hosts do well at these tournaments.
Right.
Simple as that. Although I believe the last time a host won was 1984 in France, so they might go deep, but I don't think they'll win it.
Interesting.
Which is interesting. So there's your top 3, but I don't see Germany really deserving that nod as third favourite.
Yeah, you're almost like, I think right away, obviously playing at home, you probably feel like this is the year. But then to your point, as you get into the later stages of the tournament or the expectations too high, you got all the fans cheering for you. It's almost advantageous to be an away team with a little less, pressure on you and more of a let's just win and see what we can do versus the whole crowd is chanting and wanting you, expecting to win.
It's a really great point there. And England found that out last time at Euro. The pressure on them in that final was immense at home, and to go up a goal, and then they felt the pressure and they crumbled. Being away helps. So Germany, a country that, if you look at all the polls, the country hasn't really embraced this tournament just yet because they've been such an average team in recent years. But that will turn pretty quickly, right? With a good start to this tournament, that country will come alive. It's a football country. Be immense pressure on that team for sure. So that's something to look out for sure. Yeah,
looking right now, Germany opens the tournament June 14th. 3 p.m. start against Scotland, minus 375 to win in regulation. So it seems clear that it's a nice little shit kicking to start the tournament for Germany.
First games for hosts, right? Traditionally speaking, they're difficult because the pressure is there. I still think they'll beat Scotland. Right. Although Scotland is underrated, but they're not going to go very far in this tournament, with all respect to Scott McTominay and company. Of course. But yeah, Germany should win that. But listen, you look at the history of big tournaments, the hosts often struggle in that first match. Interesting.
Well, I think it's cool because this sport feels like a lot more anything can happen than other sports. We've seen in the NFL, the Chiefs win every single year, no surprise to anyone. We're seeing in the NHL, the Florida Panthers, second year in a row in the Stanley Cup Finals. NBA, at least we're seeing a little bit of difference now. But with soccer, you really don't know. You don't know what team. Obviously, these odds are listed in a certain way, but you're looking at England, you're looking at France, you're looking at Germany, but you seem to think that maybe outside of those top 3, we can find a winner here. So
yeah, I think so. It could seem like, we'll get to Spain, I'm sure, at some point. Obviously, a solid team, but a team like Portugal, who is kind of middle of the pack at this point. Right. They're a team that can win this thing. They absolutely can win this tournament. They are stacked with talent. They got Roberto Martinez now, the coach who used to coach Belgium in their golden generation. He couldn't quite get it done with them. But you look at this team led by Cristiano Ronaldo, who, he's gone away to Saudi Arabia, 50 goals in 51 games, by the way. Yeah. Now, I know it's a crap league. Let's not kid ourselves. It's still 50 goals, 51 games. And a guy in his late 30s who it doesn't look tired. I don't think he gets tired. If he's going to be the talisman again, it's going to be one of those narratives to follow throughout this tournament. Can he get it done? He's watched his mate Leo Messi win the World Cup. It's driven him crazy.
Yeah,
he wants to get a Euro, another one under his belt. So you watch out for Portugal, because behind him you have these worker bees who are wonderful. Bruno Fernandes is absolutely brilliant at Manchester United, despite a poor campaign there. He's going to be maybe the most important player on that team. And then if you go further back, you got a Pep, who's about 76 years old now. He's actually in his 40s. And he's still going to be probably anchoring that defense. And no one is more likable yet unlikable than this guy. A guy you kind of, I hate to say it, I feel dirty saying it, but I kind of want to see him win another championship, because he's one of those, he's been around for so long. They got everything, experience, they got youth. They're a team that will very much make some noise in this tournament.
I like that. You mentioned that Ronaldo seeing Messi win is planting his head. You think guys think like that? You think they use other guys as motivation to kind of do it? For sure?
For sure. Listen.
But you think they're, like, obviously on the surface, they're friends, it's cool, but you think they're still that competitive? Oh, you did this? Watch me do
I'm
this.
not sure if they're friends or not. I mean, they've had that rivalry for 2 decades almost, right? Mm-hmm. Who's the greatest of all time? Who's the GOAT? And then because Messi won the World Cup, it's not even argued now. It's Messi.
Right.
Well, don't tell Ronaldo that. He cares about personal accolades, right? They're very important to him. If he gets this cup, then that argument will be, unless, of course, Messi wins Copa again.
Yeah.
Which is quite possible.
But I think if Argentina wins Copa, it wouldn't be as much of a surprise as if Portugal won.
You're right there. Yeah.
So, yeah, it should be interesting to see. I mean, right now I'm looking at the odds for the top goal scorer, Cristiano Ronaldo, 12-1.
Yeah, see, I'm not sure how many minutes he'll play. He'll start the tournament. Will he finish games? I'm not sure. He doesn't defend, right? The older he gets, he's very one-dimensional, and that's why the people beside him and in midfield have to work so much harder. So late in the game, in a close game, he'll probably come off for someone with better legs, more legs than him. So, but it's Ronaldo. You never rule him out. He could pop 6 goals in the group phase, and that's good enough for the Golden Boot.
Oh yeah,
it's possible. But I wouldn't put money on him to win the Golden Boot this year, which is crazy because it is Ronaldo.
Well, it's interesting because Mbappe number 1, Kane number 2. You mentioned England-France face-off. May not be the best, pairing to take in a goal scoring because of that. Ronaldo 3, Jude Bellingham at 4, 16-1. And we got Lukaku 18-1, Giroud plus 2,000, Griezmann 25-1. Anyone standing out in these names, or is it kind of just is too hard to pick here?
Giroud at 20-1. This guy's his last international tournament. He's going to MLS for next season. Okay, he starts for France with Mbappe out wide, right on one side, Dembele to the right of him, and then this scheming Griezmann who's reinvented himself just behind. He will just sit in the box and just feed off that service
like that.
So a guy that has always been underappreciated. He might not be a worth. He's definitely worth a sprinkle at 20-1, I would say. And for an old guy to score 5 or 6 goals or 7 goals and get it done, why not? But it's honestly tough to go against Mbappe, who had, I believe, 7 goals in qualifying.
Yeah, something along those lines. I think these odds are obviously priced for a reason, right? But him and Harry Kane share the top spot right now, plus 450. So odds subject to change at the time of recording, plus 450. Kylian Mbappe, Harry Kane. I'd imagine they'd stay the favorites of top goal scorers, but those odds may look a little bit different at this time next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, can they stay healthy as well? But Mbappe on the way to Real Madrid, he's got something to prove.
That's ridiculous.
France have this big chip on their shoulder because they should have won the last 3 or 4 tournaments, but they get in their heads that they kind of take things for granted, this team, and they let themselves down. That won't happen any longer, I don't think. So Mbappe's probably extremely hungry to do this. And as for Harry Kane, listen, it's so unfair, right? But this anchor follows him around that he can't win tournaments.
Comes to teams and
comes
they can't
to
win
Bayern Munich. I could win a championship at Bayern Munich, right? Right? He goes there and they lose to Leverkusen.
Yeah.
And they're losing the Champions League and he's still without a big trophy. He is, if anyone's hungering for a big silver cup more than Harry Kane, I don't know who it is. So he'll be hungry for this for sure.
Do you think us as sports media run with these narratives more than players do, or are they thinking of this stuff? They got on their bulletin boards as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, listen, we definitely go overboard.
Right.
That's what we're paid to do. Does Harry Kane lose sleep at night because he hasn't won a championship? He's got like 7 golden boots under his belt. He's extremely well paid. He's playing for the biggest clubs in the world. He'd walk into any club in the world. I think he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure when he retires, it might be something that, man, if he doesn't get that trophy, that elusive trophy, it might bug him. But at the moment, I think you're right. We probably make too much of it. But there's got to be part of it. There's got to be pressure on him, right? He's got to think, man, if I blow this again, I went to freaking Bayern Munich, for crying out loud. They won 11 straight championships until I got there, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
It's just crazy. So, yeah, I think you're right. As fans, which what we are essentially, but people in the media, we have to grab onto these narratives and make too much of them. But some of them, there's some truth in there as well.
For sure. I say that just because right now there's a similar situation in the NHL with Connor McDavid, greatest player of our generation, stats on another level, passes the eye test, yada, yada, hasn't won anything yet. And a lot of people hold that against him, but I feel like it's not as easy for one guy to take a whole team to a championship. Obviously, they have the opportunity to do that this year, but it's just funny you mentioned that about Harry Kane. There's some similarities there where it's like he hasn't won anything yet, but you can't take away from how good this guy is.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, being honest, Connor McDavid, best player we've seen in a generation.
Oh, absolutely.
If he loses, if he wins nothing in his career, will it really shroud his brilliance?
It might,
maybe
though.
A little bit.
I think at least with this, like the sports media, right? It's like, what have you done for me lately? And we saw it with Alex Ovechkin. Just, I know we're sidebarring to hockey here, but like he was the same thing. Leading goal scorer every single year, one of the best players in the league, never won a championship. Finally won a championship. And that's when I think the full media kind of embraced him and gave him that respect. Is not only can he show up and light up the lamp when it comes to scoring goals, but he can also win championships. So
yeah.
You think Harry Kane may be in a similar boat if they don't get it done this tournament?
Well, this tournament perhaps, yeah. But he's still got some years left. He's going to win. If he stays at Bayern Munich, they'll probably win next year. I mean, they're going to win something next year. I can't imagine a world where Bayern Munich doesn't win for 2 years straight. So if he wins something, then that goes away, doesn't it? And then he can go back to England late in his career, go to Man City and, just scoop a Premier League at some point. But if he does win Euro this year, that will end the argument for him. That'll be perfect. Doesn't matter what else he wins. He gets that because England haven't won since 1966. That's before even I was born.
Well, it's very close to 1967. Sounds very similar to another another big sports team around here that people, high-powered offense, should be on paper one of the winners every year. Heartbreaking losses.
Questionable defense.
Yep. It's
too much pressure.
It sounds very similar.
What am I doing with my life? England and Leafs?
I might be staying away from England just purely as a Leafs fan. I don't know now.
Stay away, please.
Stay away.
You don't need that in your life.
I don't know. The way you're saying, I'm like, are we talking about hockey or are we talking about soccer right now? I really
it's easy
don't know.
that I often find myself in my chats with my friends sipping from soccer to hockey. There's obvious parallels there.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's kind of the bridge where it's like for me when I was talking with Sarah and Johnny, it would be like, okay, how do you explain this in hockey terms? How do you explain this in football terms? How does this make sense to me?
Yeah. Did Sarah, you talk Euro with Sarah at all?
We talked a little bit of Euros, yeah.
She's not in England's bandwagon, is she?
No, she was not. She did not appreciate the Toronto Maple Leaf England parallels at all.
She's a big Leaf fan of Sarah, and I loves her hockey.
So. Oh, I know. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing she's going to miss out there. So.
Okay. Going to move my mic up a little bit, according to Sean. Here we go. Here we go. Is that better? Or more? Okay. Here.
We'll just
there we go.
Jump back in then.
There we go.
Any teams that people are looking at that you think overrated? Don't want to hear their story of how they're going to win. They may be high odds. Oh, this is the team. This is the year. Any team, kind of talked about England in that regard, but there are any teams that you'd avoid putting your money on or really putting any sort of support behind this tournament?
Yeah, and I'll probably rue this because I think they'll probably get out of the group. But in that group, you got Spain, Italy, Croatia, and Albania.
Yeah. And
listen, Spain, I think, are an excellent team. They could win this whole tournament. But Italy, defending champions, who really no one's talking about right now.
Yeah, it's surprising.
Because they blew it qualifying for the World Cup, last two World Cups. So they win Euro, but that's sandwiched by two abject failures. Defensively, where they're just so renowned. No more Bonucci, no more Chiellini. Acerbi, who would have been there, is injured right now. They're still very good defensively as Italy, but it's a different time, a different era beginning here. Their concern is up front. Who's going to score their goals right now?
Right.
Scamacca might well start. He's coming off a very good season at his club level, but is he really this quality? I don't think he is. They got a new manager in Spalletti who replaced Roberto Mancini, who of course led them to Euro glory. Right. Who went to Saudi Arabia. In comes Spalletti, who's still kind of finding out what this team is. It's his first foray also into international knockout cup football. Will that count against them? I don't know. It's just Italy are always going to be up there with the discussion points at big tournaments. And I know the Italian fans will always put money on the Azzurri. I just look at this group right now, and they've got to get past Spain and Croatia. Now, bear in mind, there's 4 best third-place teams can qualify for the knockout phase, right?
But they get a tough matchup in the next round.
Very tough matchup, yeah. And they're fortunate I look at Croatia, for example, and you never rule out Croatia because we do it every tournament, and then before you know it, they're in the final. They might not win much, but they have great tournaments. They still got some real class there, but they are aging. Surely this is the tournament where it gets too much for them. But I think Italy and Croatia, two big names, I don't see them making much noise at this year's tournament.
Okay.
And I'm gonna, I can guarantee I will regret saying that when Croatia gets to the final.
Yeah, no, this studio is notorious for that. You say someone's not going to do well, watch them exceed. If you give them the kiss of death, that's what's going to happen. Yep. So, I mean, there's more times I've been in this studio and said things I've been wrong on than I've been right. So, very, very common in this environment.
It's the business, I'm afraid, my friend.
Oh, of course, and it all lives online. So it's like, remember when you said this? I wish I didn't, but here it is.
There it is. Yep.
Is Group B then the group of death? You'd say Albania, Croatia, Italy, Spain. You think we get 3 teams out of there?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a nightmare of a group. Even Albania have some decent players, right? Assuming he can play, Amande Broja of Chelsea is a guy that can make a name for himself at this year's tournament if he's healthy. But yeah, overall, you got 3 teams there who consider themselves contenders. I still think Spain are going to be the team. It's funny, some of these well-known teams, you do ask the question, where will the goals come from? And Spain's a prime example of that. Is it Alvaro Morata, who he's in his early 30s now, never prolific for his club, but for his country, he seems to find a way, and he find a way to do well. But if he's not scoring his goals, who is scoring his goals? Is it going to be Joselu from Real Madrid, who's great off the bench for Real Madrid? I don't know. They've got good defense, really young, exciting midfielders. But as far as scoring goals, I just don't know.
Well, those are always the teams that do well, right? When you don't have one guy leading the charge, it's the whole team that's rallying around it. So you're saying maybe not a distinct top goal scorer coming from Spain, but multiple guys that are filling the stat sheet to help them out.
Lamine Yamal is one of these young players, a teenager who could steal the show, this World Cup. Absolutely, he could. He can score goals from midfield. He scored in his debut. I think he got a brace in his debut for Spain. He's still a teenager, so they got so much. But then you have their best player, I think by far, is Rodri, who's probably the best. He's not probably. He is the best defensive holding midfielder in European football, probably world football. But is he a game breaker? Now, he's shown the ability to score big goals in big games for his club at Man City. But can you rely on him? If he's your best player and he's defensive midfielder, that tells you, I think, a little bit more about the rest of the side. But it's still Spain, right? They have depth. They could win this. They're in that handful of 5 or 6 teams that could win this thing.
Well, we've talked about this handful quite a bit now. James, I want to get you on the record right here in the Sports Interaction studio. Who is winning the Euros in 2024?
Well, I said I have to pick England.
Yeah,
I've never picked them to win a tournament before. That potential semi-final against France is going to be momentous. Anyone can win that one, of course, but whoever comes out of that half of the draw, you've got to think will be the favourites in the final.
Okay.
But listen, people will judge me for that because I'm English and they'll say I'm one-eyed and biased and blinkered. But the bottom line is I am the harshest critic of this team over the years.
Yeah.
They crush me. They break my heart. I expect nothing from them. This year could be different. I look at that team and from goal out, there's few weaknesses. I said before, defensively, yes, there's health issues there for sure. But from the midfield in particular and the attack, I don't know if they've got a team outside of France who comes even close.
Okay, I like it. I find a lot of people get mad when you pick your own team. It's like, what would I pick against my own team?
It's my brain, not the heart, for once.
So. I like that. Usually when the brain and heart are in sync, you can't lose, right? So, they always say bet with your brain, not your heart. But if they're in line, I mean, maybe this is the year. It's coming home. Who knows?
Coming home. People love that, don't they?
Oh, I see people running with it. They're singing it all the time.
Everyone else rubs it in our faces when they crash out in the quarterfinals and penalties.
Well, it's social media, right? It's like every fan base has like an enemy, an ally where you just dunk on certain teams. So
when that first came out, it was a song back in, was it Euro '96, which England hosted. It's Coming Home. It's a brilliant song.
Mm-hmm.
I still sing it to myself in the shower. It was amazing. Halcyon days. And man, that was a good team. The golden generation. The future's bright. 1-0 since. Got to the final of that tournament. Didn't win. 1-0. Nothing.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, it's still a good song. I mean, it'll start rising up the charts. You'll start hearing it.
Every tournament it does.
People driving around Bay Street, windows down. I'm sure you'll hear it quite a bit. So yeah, it's going to be a good atmosphere. Like Toronto has like a good mix of the different cultures here. So it should be fun to see the different games. One thing now, top goal scorer. We hovered around a couple different names. We reviewed some of the odds. Who do you think is going to be the guy scoring the most goals in this tournament?
Yeah, well, I mentioned how I like a 20-1. That's a nice bet putting on Giroud, but I really think, I mean, it's not a sexy pick. It's kind of obvious out of Mbappe and Harry Kane. Yeah. They're the two best goal-scoring footballers in this tournament, both in top form, both with something to prove as well.
That's true.
Both their teams can go a long way. Obviously, like I mentioned, could meet in the semi-finals. But Harry Kane is prolific wherever he goes, including for his country. He's going to be the focal point of that team as well, as is Mbappe. It's going to be the focal point for that team. So they'll get lots of minutes, play every game. And, Mbappe's proven in previous tournaments, as is Harry Kane, he can lead all others. I don't see an argument why he wouldn't again. For
sure. So I guess as a better, whatever team you feel will go further, England or France, that would kind of dictate who you would pick as the leading goal scorer.
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm going to go with Portugal. Just after all the stuff you kind of said there and just an emotional tie. I went to Portugal last summer. I actually watched the team play Bosnia in the Euro qualifiers. Ronaldo scored one of the most effortless headers I've ever seen. It was offside, but it was crazy. Like the people there, every time he touched the ball, it's like an audible. People worship him there. And that fan base, that's kind of where I really started to fall in love with the sport, being in, I believe, Estadio de Luz, where Benfica plays.
Yeah, I was there last summer as well.
Oh, it was amazing. It was so much fun. My first soccer game, and I think that was kind of the emotional tie into Portugal. And then
that's your first game.
That was first game
at the Estadio de Luz.
That's not true. I went to a TFC game.
Okay.
But first real, European.
No. TFC is real.
Yeah.
Right, but I know you're saying, man, it's a great stadium.
Oh, yeah.
An amazing fan base at Benfica.
Oh, it was incredible.
So to see Portugal play there, that's pretty cool.
What I learned, what was interesting, is they don't serve alcohol in the stadiums.
No. Not even in the concourse?
Yeah. So in the pregame, the tailgate, it's similar to like what you see at a football game. They're little stands, they're selling stuff. But the minute you get in, it's just straight waters.
Yeah, and you can't drink anything in the stands.
Oh, yeah.
Itself. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, there's been, a little history of issues in football games over there, with the old booze flowing.
Oh, I'm sure. We should put up a prop on Sports Interaction over under number of pitch invaders for the tournament there.
No kidding.
Just imagine that would be a high number. But yeah, that recaps the Euros. Let's switch gears a little bit, because we do have another major tournament taking place over the next little bit, the Copa Americas. Mm-hmm. So I think this one is very interesting for Canadians, especially because we have some international representation. We saw the World Cup a few years ago. People were flying the flags, the jerseys, the bumper stickers. Everyone was all on board of Canada. And for lack of a better term, they didn't show up. They didn't play that well. They had a very tough group stage, obviously, but it seems like now it's not getting much easier, starting with Argentina. What are your expectations for Canada in this next few weeks for the Copa Americas?
I have no idea. And I'm being honest here. And there's reasons for that. This is a decent team, okay? The last decent game we saw them play, like competitive game certainly, was probably before the World Cup. Maybe the Belgium game of the World Cup. It's been a long time, is my point.
Right.
A very long time. Hasn't been on top form. They now have a brand new coach who's taking command of the team for the first time this week against Netherlands and against France. So we'll find out a lot from that. But a brand new manager, few new faces in there. I think they will play hard. They'll play dynamic under Jesse Marsch. But they're in a tough group. I could see them losing all 3 games. Now, I could also see them getting a point against Chile, perhaps, who's very much on its last legs with some veteran players, albeit very good veteran players.
Right.
Peru's always going to be discounted. They got to the final back in 2019. Don't forget, that's a team. It's a proper team as Peru. And then you got the world champions. The opening game of Copa America against Canada. How cool is that? It's
Stakes
amazing.
Couldn't be higher, yeah.
But like I said before, what happens in opening games for host nations? Weird things can happen, right?
Weird things, yes.
Don't think that's going to happen this time. Won't lie to you. Okay. But I think they'll do themselves proud. I think they'll score a couple of goals. I don't see them getting out of the group. But, if they did get out of the group, And somehow, would it stun me? No, not at all.
I think as Canadians, all we want to see is an encouraging sign. You got the World Cup in a few years. Nobody's really, when you think of Canada, you think about hockey. You're starting to think more about basketball with some of the new talent that's come in. No one's really saying anything about soccer, but I feel like now in recent years, especially with the women's team's been doing well, and now the men's team's starting to do well, that sort of expectation is not necessarily set yet, but eventually it's going to be like, okay, well, we haven't done anything yet. So I think there's a lot to prove in this tournament. They got a tough draw, like you said, Argentina game 1. Right now at Sports Interaction, the odds for Argentina to win in regular time, minus 275. So it doesn't seem like odds makers are giving Canada much of a chance either. It doesn't seem like you're giving Canada much of a chance.
But the odds makers don't know much about Canada either, right?
That's true.
And I do want to see him play under Jesse Marsh because, listen, he's still kind of eyeballing the World Cup and how they're going to suit up for the World Cup, let's be honest, on home soil. So he's got a long time. But this is a baptism by fire. But he loves attacking dynamic football, right? Pressing, winning that ball back, very quick in the transition. Canada has those players available to them, right? Mm-hmm. They will cause some issues. There's no doubt about it for these teams. They won't be walkovers by any stretch. But listen, it's Copa. It's too bad it's not in South America this time around. It's in the States, which you understand why. But that would be a different beast playing actually in South America in front of those crowds. So, but still, they're going to be full stadiums. We'll see how they do. But I'm really thoroughly looking forward to this.
It should be good. Yeah, for me, I'll never forget that one game. I think it was either Davies. He scored the goal and jumped into the snow and did the Snow Angels.
The Azteca, in Edmonton, against Mexico.
That was like forever, like such a Canadian moment. Like he's in the snow, it's cold. Sam
Adekubi was a guy that dove into the snow.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Okay.
It was after the Fonzie goal, I think it was. What a moment for. And that's the thing about, this Canadian team. There haven't been that many moments for Canada's national men's team.
Right.
It forever. The 86 World Cup was great. They won the Gold Cup in 2000. But those moments, iconic moments, and that, with the way social media is, it went viral around the world. It was a great, important moment, and it set up so much hype for the World Cup that they could never really reach that hype at the World Cup, and it wasn't a great World Cup, like you mentioned there. Yeah. Didn't play the best football. John Herdman, the coach, was going through a lot of stuff off the pitch.
Okay.
It was difficult, but it was their first World Cup in 30-odd years. They got that goal, that monkey off their back.
Right.
So they should be better suited for a Copa and for a World Cup down the stretch.
For sure. Yeah, I think as Canadians, we just want to see a moment, right? Like a moment, a big win, a rally from behind, something to just give Canadians that hope where they can talk about it. Obviously, the expectations for this team aren't super high, but if they can do something to shock people, I feel like you get a lot of people on board, new fans, maybe people that haven't been watching Canadian men's soccer for a while to come back, and that's just good for the World Cup.
Yeah, of course. And because, Euro's going on at the same time as Copa America, so it's going to be this festival of football, it seems, right?
Yeah.
All the bars, I think, throughout June and July. So if you can get some new eyeballs on this team, and if they can get a result against one of these three teams, and it's, like I said, it's not impossible. Yeah. They're a good team. I am worried about their defense for sure, but certainly going forward, there's some excitement there. They can definitely get something against a Peru or a Chile. Argentina, less likely, but hey, you never know. Saudi Arabia smashed them at the World Cup, don't forget. Right. And then they went on to win it. Sometimes you need that, of course.
Well, right now at Sports Interaction, we have 2 novelty specials I want to get your take on. Will Canada win a game in this tournament?
I hope so. But I'm going to say no.
Yeah. I think, you want to. We talked about it, betting with your heart, betting with your brain. The heart wants to say, yes, I want them to win all of them. I want them to win the whole thing. But obviously, that's going to be a tough one. This one might be a bit more, a little bit more thinking. Canada to score over 1.5 goals in the group stage. So we saw in the World Cup, they had 2 total. Davies had 1, an own goal. Can we see over 1.5 goals from the Canadian squad in this tournament?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
All right. Their attack, as I mentioned there, it's not only decent, but it's intriguing, right? They have this new player they called up from Minnesota MLS, Tani Oluwaseyi. He's a young player who most people hadn't heard of, but he's scored 7 goals this year for Minnesota. I've watched a lot of MLS this season. Okay. He's legit. He's fun to watch. If they can get him under the Canadian umbrella, get him cap-tied, he might add something to the mix that wasn't there before. You got John David, one of the top goal scorers in European football, probably going to move to a big club this summer. You got Carl Larin, who will probably still start, but he's not coming off the greatest season in Spain. Ike Ugbo, who had a great second half of the season at Sheffield Wednesday, could be moving to a big club this summer as well. There's lots of options there.
Okay.
And then in the midfield, you got the Ismail Kone, a young player who's really trying to find himself, but he's going to be central to this team for the next decade. There's some genuine attack there. And of course, Alphonso Davies playing out wide, whether it's a left back or left wing back, whatever formation they use, probably a left back. They got that pace out wide. So they can definitely do some damage. They can score goals. I'm sure about that. So I would go for the over.
Okay.
But it might not be enough to get them out of the group. I'll say they'll pick up a draw.
I like that.
I can see them drawing Chile, and that's me being optimistic.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not saying they're going to win a game, but they're going to get a point.
That's what we want.
Which is something.
That's what we want. Something. That's all we need is something. You know, we pride ourselves being Canadian sports book, so we'd love to see Canada do something. I'm sure everyone watching would love to see Canada do something. So really excited to see Canada on this stage. But let's talk about the rest of the tournament here, because there are many other teams in Canada. Is this Argentina's tournament to lose this year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a tough one to win Copa America, as they've found out to their peril over the years. And Messi was criticized a lot for not getting it done and losing big games and big finals. There's always depth in Copa America. But given that Brazil seem to be in this rebuilding stage, I'm not quite sure what they are. Argentina as the world champions, yeah, I mean, they have to win this thing, don't they? I don't see why they wouldn't. You look at a Uruguay who's been there many, many times, aging, relying on older players, not too much in the pipeline there. I mentioned Chile before. Colombia's always one to worry about, but no one's stood out in recent years. There's been this decline in South American football, it seems. Mismanagement off the scenes, lack of development has been a problem. So, yeah, Argentina should win it. And if Messi can cap a World Cup with another Copa America, then, I mean, he's done, right? What else? Yeah. What else can you do apart from win MLS?
Maybe play in Vancouver, but other than that, not much left for Messi to do. I know a lot of people around this office weren't too happy about that one.
Yeah, well, I know. I don't think anyone should have expected it, to be honest with you.
Really? Okay.
No, I mean, listen, it's tough. It's a 6-hour flight. They're going to load manage him left, right, and center, and it's not an important game because they're going to win. Well, going to qualify for the playoffs anyway. Same thing in Toronto when it comes around.
October, right?
He won't be here.
Sarah was saying he probably won't even show up, but I mean, you look at ticket prices; they assume he's showing up. So,
well, go if you want to spend $1,000 on the ticket, then don't whine when he doesn't come because you've been warned.
Yeah, you're also sitting outside in Toronto in October, so it won't exactly be the warmest. So,
no.
But that's interesting. Messi currently the top goal scorer favorite, plus 350. Vinicius Jr. plus 400, Julian Alvarez plus 600. So it's a bit closer when it comes to goal scoring odds as opposed to what we saw on the Euro side. But to your point, Messi, it seems like the eyes are on him to step up on the stage and help Argentina win the tournament.
But at the same time, you know, you never do rule out Brazil.
Yeah.
All right. And you mentioned Vinny Jr. there, who's arguably the best player in world football right now. A lot of people think he is. You know, we saw him at Real Madrid this season doing wonderful things, looking great in the final of the Champions League again.
Right.
He's someone that can throw a team on his shoulders. I don't think it'll be enough, though, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Now I'm just scrolling through some of the different odds because we got a lot of prop markets here. Team to finish in the bottom of the tournament, Canada plus 115.
Are they the favorites to finish dead last?
Yes.
Are they really?
They are. So... Sorry, finish the bottom of Group A.
Oh, Group A, right, yeah.
Which I guess would make sense given the draw here. It always seems like they got a tough... 115.
115?
115.
I couldn't put money on that, but I could see why someone might.
Well, here's one you might like. Tournament winner and top scorer. Argentina to win the tournament. Leo Messi to be top scorer plus 550.
How can you not just lean towards Messi again?
It's safe, right? If you don't know a ton about the sport like myself, I see that. I see, okay, Argentina, they just won. Messi, best player in the world. Easy, right?
Yeah, well, precisely. And if you watch him in MLS this year, I know it's MLS, and defensively, that they're really catching up going forward. Defensively, there's some horror shows still in MLS, and you watch the way defenders give him so much space because they're terrified. You know, is he really that good as we've seen so far? I think 16 goals in the season.
Yeah.
We're going to find out at Copa because they defend like animals, right? It won't be as easy for them for sure, but you know, a plus 550, I think you said there.
Yeah. So they'd have to win the tournament
and him golden. I'm putting money on that.
I like that.
I don't just like it. I'm putting money on that. Sean's putting a lot of money on that.
I believe that. I definitely believe that for sure. Because if they win, who else would be the leading scorer on that team, right?
Well, I mean, Alvarez is good. He's why I think third or fourth favorite right now as a Golden Boot winner. Very, very good.
Yeah. Well, I was looking, that's what I think is the cool little combo. If you can get a top goal scorer and a tournament future, I mean, If you're the Nostradamus, someone in the room has it. I know some people can do it. We've seen some crazy parlays hit in our book. So I know a lot of people have made a lot of money when it comes to baseball betting, soccer betting, or hockey betting and basketball betting. So hopefully soccer would be the same. So who do you think? You think Argentina's winning the tournament? Who do you think they play in the finals? Because we do have odds on who will make the finals, not necessarily who wins the whole thing.
Okay, I haven't seen the bracket actually for Copa just yet, as far as how that plays out. Who are the favorites for the actual win it after Argentina?
So to win the whole thing, Argentina plus 175, Brazil plus 225, Uruguay plus 500. Sarah said before she had left, don't count out Uruguay in this tournament. So, and then Colombia plus 1200, Mexico same odds, USA same odds.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the States are due for a good tournament at some point. I like the States a lot, actually. They're really in this upward trajectory. I don't think they'll win it. They could go deep. Mexico as well. I know Sarah likes Uruguay. I like Uruguay. I just think they're still aging in the wrong positions right now. They can't rely on Luis Suarez for much longer. But there is some interesting talent coming through the pipeline there. I just don't see it, honestly, outside of Argentina and Brazil, albeit that poor Brazil by their standards. I don't see it happening.
Okay. Yeah, USA right now plus 130 to win their group. Obviously, Uruguay the favorite, minus 145. So, yeah, maybe they're the sleeper team that maybe people don't see as much going into this tournament, but coming out of it, USA could be the talk of the town. So, I'd love to see a Canada-USA game at some point. I know the tournament wouldn't put us in that situation, but it's always nice to see that rivalry, whether it's basketball. We might see it at the Olympics. We always see it in hockey. So.
We're seeing qualifying for the World Cup, right? They don't like each other. And now with Jesse Marsh, an American in charge of Canada, that would add another layer of intrigue to that matchup for sure. It'd be a lot of fun, actually.
Absolutely. So I'm guessing the James Sharman parlay then is England to win the Euros and Argentina to win the Copas.
Yeah, not like I'm educating anyone here. I mean, they're the favorites of both tournaments, right?
We took the sharp plays.
But I will be doing that parlay, though. Yes.
Okay.
Throw in Harry Kane as a Golden Boot winner, maybe.
Oh.
And then old Mr. Messi on the other side. That would provide some pretty decent odds, I would think.
I like it. Yeah, well, Ronaldo was the leading goal scorer in the tournament back in 2020, so if I'm taking Portugal, I might do that same Portugal to win, Ronaldo to be top goal
why not?
Scorer. I mean, why not? Exactly. The emotional connection, and then they say bet with your brain, not your heart, but I mean, this is all new to me.
Do you do that like in sports? Do you like have your favorite, say the Leafs are playing, for example?
Yeah.
Right, but you hedge your heart by putting some money on the opponent? I
try to avoid betting on my favorite teams just purely out of the fact that I already have emotional investment in it. I don't need money on that, so that's not. I did put a future on the Leafs to win the cup, just purely out of
I've done that. Every year I do that.
Blind optimism. You never know if this is the year. At least make some money on it. But unless you're absolutely certain the team's gonna win, I won't bet on them. Like there's sometimes where you watch the team and okay, they've lost 3 in a row. Matthews is at the post 5 times in the last 2 games. He's gonna score tonight. And they're gonna win. So when you absolutely know because you watch the team for sure. But I've been bit more times than I've been right about betting on my own team. Yeah, so I try to avoid it.
I put a few bucks in Boston. I won't lie to you.
Okay.
Just because
you're doing so well.
I know. And I'm a Leaf fan, as Sean will tell you. I'm a huge Leaf fan, but I've been through the ringer too long, too often, that I had to have something to be happy about on the other side. Yeah. And I felt dirty.
I'm sure you do.
But you know what? The $25 I pocketed. I don't put much in my wages, put it that way.
No, I feel that. The year 2021. This was the year that Tavares got hurt. They were up 3-1. They blew it. Got to game 7. I just knew. I was like, all right, they got to game 7. They don't have a captain. They're going to lose this game. So I put 50 on Montreal to win. And they won, but I felt so guilty with that money. I just felt, I shouldn't have done that.
Couldn't spend it, right?
I didn't. I was just like, this feels terrible. Like, I should have donated to charity. I didn't, but it was just dirty money for sure.
Yeah, especially being Montreal of all teams.
I know. It's just, I knew they were going to win. It's like sometimes you just know with your team. Like, you seem to know with things like if you're absolutely certain they're going to win or they're going to play a certain way or someone's going to score, at the end of the day, it's about making money, right?
Like if England play France in the semifinals. I know I've picked England to win the whole thing, and that's my head.
Yeah.
But I know the heart will take over, and it will tell me, you know what, you can't. You just can't. You've been through this before.
Yeah.
You know exactly what's going to happen here.
Your brain's like, don't do this to me again. Yeah, I've been there. Well, let's talk general soccer, football betting, because it seems to be a lot of different ways you can bet on games. Mm-hmm. Sports Interactions are a great market because you can bet on number of corners, number of penalties, score in the first half, score in the second half, both teams score. It just feels like there's a lot more markets in soccer. And what you had mentioned earlier is the live betting aspect of this game is a bit more intriguing than maybe the pregame betting.
Yeah, I like live betting with soccer just because it's such a nuanced sport and you have to get a feel for the game. Anyone can really win any given day, but obviously in the Premier League, for example, if Sheffield United is playing Man City, very little chance of that going a certain way, but a number of goals could, obviously help your odds there. So I often wait until like halftime. For example, Champions League final. Real Madrid offered very little value to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? Big favourites. But by halftime, it's 0-0. And Dortmund could have been 2 or 3 goals up. But I've seen this story so many times before with Real Madrid. I knew they'd find a way and they'd be better in the second half. And there was plus money at that point to put on them. So did that one a few, right?
Wow.
So that's with football, I find it a lot easier to bet in-game than before the weekend starts. Throw down a 6-game parlay.
Interesting.
For example.
I like that. So for games where a favorite should dominate, if they're not dominating by, let's say, half, it wouldn't be a bad bet to maybe throw some money on them at half when the odds are a bit better. I like that. That's an interesting one.
For sure.
Are there any traps that you've seen where you fall for it, you love it, you bet it, and then it just doesn't happen? Like anything to avoid as a bettor in soccer?
I never bet on draws.
Okay.
I never do. I mean, there's so fewer and fewer games in the draws, it seems, these days. 3 points are so important. And you see with this parity at certain levels in leagues now, but from the top to the bottom, it's very, very different. So I try to avoid draws. I like going for goal scoring props for sure. There was time, not so much this year, but last season, Erling Haaland was scoring every game.
Right.
And he was scoring multiples every game. And that was still providing really great value, for example. So don't be drawn into poor form. If Haaland hasn't scored for 4 or 5 games, doesn't mean he's not going to score in that 6th game. He's bound to.
Okay. And then from experience with just watching these types of tournaments, are there certain guys that seem to, take it to a next level when it comes to the international or European Copa America stage versus the
that's a great
stages?
question, because there are certain players who just kind of turn it on for their countries. I mentioned Morata for Spain, for example. Another player is Memphis Depay for the Netherlands.
Okay.
This guy's got a troubled past. He's bouncing club to club. He's upset so many managers with poor discipline, but he's an incredible player. When he puts that Laronia shirt on, he turns into a beast. And again, this year, he had a poor season through injuries, but when he played very, very well. And he's a guy that might not be bad looking at him to be on that goal scoring sheet, or at least an assist sheet, game in, game out, because he just elevates his game for some reason when he puts that shirt on.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, well, I've found this stat earlier. I forgot to bring it up during our Euros discussion. So in the last tournament, there was an average of 2.78 goals per match, which is the highest in the history of the tournament. Only 2 games in the entire tournament had 0 goals. So only 2 games in the entire tournament, 0-0. 2.78 goals per match. The over-under is typically set at 2.5. So just blindly betting overs, if you may not be as knowledgeable, might be my strategy here, just because it's backed by data now.
Those third games too in the group phase, be careful.
Okay.
Be careful. There's often dead rubbers that don't mean that much. But that being said, now with having the 4 best third place teams qualifying, that might add some more intrigue in certain matches. But don't buy into great performances in those games, because you get some odd results.
Okay, that's good to know. Dead rubbers, you said.
Yeah, dead rubbers. Haven't heard it before?
No, that has a much different meaning.
I heard Sean here smirking over here.
Yeah, no,
it's very immature.
Something over here. Yeah, it must be something completely different. But no, I'm glad that I feel a lot more wise coming out of this. I feel like our viewers feel a lot more wise. I think I have a bit more information now coming into these tournaments, what I should like, what I shouldn't like, expectations for Canada, and then some kind of best betting strategies to tie it all together. So I appreciate you coming on here, James. And for those watching, he will be a part of the Sports Interaction team for the next little bit. We're going to be doing some live streams. We're going to be doing some watch parties. We're going to be doing some best bets, parlays, as we talked about here. So stay tuned on Sports Interaction social media feeds. Follow myself, follow James, and follow our brand. And continue to bet with Sports Interaction, your homegrown sports book. Bet local.